Good. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Product Disorder podcast. And today we're talking about soft skills in product management. And we have Niva, Omri, and Seb with us. They're all of them product managers, including myself. And we would like to discuss and share some experiences in soft skills in product management. So, Niva, tell us a little bit about your experience with soft skills in product management. What do you think about being a product manager who has to deal with soft skills?
Yeah, sure. So I guess when it comes to soft skills are something that it's maybe sometimes a little bit undermined in various skills various fields, especially when it comes to product management. I think in any kind of field, soft skills are super, super important. And even in the most technical fields or in most technical product management roles, soft skills are essentially something that we have to have. We are collaborating with the other team members on an ongoing basis. We are dealing with problems that we need to solve. We might be running into issues. So having a good set of soft skills is obviously equally important as technical skills. I think especially when it comes to product management, there is, as product managers, I guess we worked across various teams, and I think particularly communication is one of the things that is super, super important. So in order to make sure that the team is aligned, that we are very clear what we need to do. Obviously there's internal things we need to be dealing with, but as product management managers, we're also involved in a lot of other teams or collaborating with a lot of other teams like sales, marketing, leadership, actually, when we are talking to our customers. So in that sense, a good set of communication skills in particular is very, very important and critical. Yeah.
And what would you say, because we talk a lot about soft skills, what would you say are the set of soft skills that a product manager needs to have?
Yeah.
In your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, there's various, coming from communication, I guess communication would be first that always comes to mind, and I think it's so critical, especially in these days where we deal with remote work and working across different cultures and countries and time zones and so forth. That it's obviously very, very critical. I'm thinking communication also in terms of conflict management, for instance. Right, sooner or later we'll run into a conflict. Doesn't have to be a big one, but still, we need to know where we're coming from, what communication styles other people have, where we come in, and finding good ways to resolve that, or at least work on those conflicts we ran into. Leadership is another skill. Obviously, that's related to communication and other parts as well. I'm thinking critical thinking is another one. There can be many different things.
And communication is, I'm just thinking communication is tricky, right? As a product manager, is it written communication, verbal communication? Is it adjusting their communication? I'm thinking what do you see there? Have you seen any issues, Niva? Like some product managers are really bad in communication or don't have the soft skills. Like what kind of situation happens, and what can you do to alleviate those situations?
Yeah. I think we all tend to think that we're good communicators up until we run into specific issues. So maybe something is being communicated maybe in a bit unclear way, or we suddenly figure out that we're not aligned as to the degree that we would hope for. I think it's all of it, right? I think it's obviously there's verbal communication that is super critical. That making sure that the team is aligned, that we are clear in raising up issues or talking about challenges that we're experiencing, that we're clear on what we need to do. And also written, obviously, it's also a very important part, right? As we write, everything really from user stories to all parts, making it very, very clear that especially on when it comes to team collaboration, that everybody's kind of on the same page. And obviously, I think an important part as a product manager is also, since we are in this role of kind of connecting different dots within the organization or within the team, that we are able to translate one language into another, right? So let's say we speak to our customers, so that we are able to bring that language to the engineers so they know what they need to do, and vice versa. Or maybe like if there's like something that like I don't know, change in a corporate strategy that comes from the leadership, that we're able to deliver that to our team and say, hey, this is where the strategy is now shifting. This is what we are planning to do. So it's all these different kind of languages or different communication styles also, that we need to kind of figure out how to.
So when does it clash? Like, have you seen any typical situations where communication just breaks down and the team just falls apart and are not able to operate?
I think it can happen on many different levels, right? I think one could be like internally within the team. Specifically, if we're working on like a very technical challenge, let's say, engineers will have their own language and their own maybe terminology to describe or to just work on something. So it's also our kind of job to know or ask, or making sure that we know what we need to do. The other one can be, as said, can be coming from maybe the leadership or outside our team. That also has to be kind of translated in the way that we can work with and yeah.
For me, I tend to go in one direction, which is I'm kind of dictating what should happen if I feel like we're out of control, or the other one is I would like to empower the team and I would like to actually have them come up with solutions and this stuff. So then I tend to be too vague. It's like either one extreme or the other extreme. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. I think that also comes down to trust, right? And different management or leadership styles we have, right? I think in my approach, I also tend to put a lot of trust in the team and just kind of giving them the space and I just trust that they know what to do. But sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes it's just like maybe being unclear what needs to be done or be open to something else. So I think it's it's probably finding a good balance between these things.
I definitely second the issue with trust. I find that in every example that I've encountered where there was a clash between product and dev, product and leadership, I think the main thing that was broken was trust. It was either that it wasn't built yet, and one of the sides came in with some radical solution that the other side was not prepared for and thought was working against them, or that something happened that broke the trust that already existed, and in that way I think that can cause a lot of issues with communication and with I think just managing expectations, sort of. I think that's a lot of how I feel that soft skills find themselves within the role of a product manager is managing those expectations and making sure that everybody is clear about what is possible, what is reasonable and also kind of getting people excited about what is, what's to come.
I totally agree. I think when you were saying about trust, I just started right away thinking about, well, but how do you build trust, right? And we've been discussing that previously. We've had events on that topic. How do you really build trust, and how do you then make sure that there is mutual understanding, and that you're on the same page? And I always have found this to be the most challenging, that we have pretty much the same understanding with no matter who is the stakeholder. Is that the development team or the business side, or is it the marketeer, or is it support? That we have the same understanding. And I have seen this so many times. I think it's called Chinese whisper, but one thing starts in certain shape and form, and then it ends up being something completely different. And I think that's really about trust, but then also the language that you're using, and do you have the same understanding of the same words? Really, I think it sometimes even boils down to that, especially if we're also working in a international context, when then most of us speak a second language, English. So I was just wondering, any of you, do you have examples of success stories of actually great communication skills, or just a bit of a sign that somewhere something was moving in the right direction, right? Because I'm pretty sure we can find a lot of bad examples, and we can speak a lot about the bad examples, but any good ones?
I have a good one. In my role as the digital access manager for the National Library of Israel, I worked with an organization that had about 200 different stakeholders, with every department being very in tone about what what their goal is and what they are measured with. And my role as the product manager there was to collect all of these different stakeholders' wishes, essentially, and kind of translate them into one product, which is the new website for the library. And it began as a very bumpy and rocky road, because it was a very classic organization that exists over 100 years, and the systems there were at least 30 years old. So it was dealing with a lot of legacy and a lot of mistrust, because in the past, the digital department pretty much did whatever they wanted, and there was a lot of fear that every change would be for the worst, because that was their experience until then. And it took, it sounds a little discouraging, but it took 30 months of sitting with all of these stakeholders week after week, and collecting both their passion and their expectations of their users, and also their needs and pains, into what I started calling the empathy bowl, which was a physical bowl of all of the different pages of transcripts from those meetings, and then translating them back into a feature, and then meeting with division heads every week to communicate the progress and have them bring back feedback and pushback from their own departments. Which, I mean, it was a very rocky road, and it took a lot of trust building in the most basic sense of it. But I think if we did not, if we hadn't reached a point where we had a very high level of trust that I will champion their needs within the product, nothing would ever be complete, and the product would never see the light of day. And I'm very happy to say that it did, and that it did see a lot of success, both in making knowledge accessible for free to users, and also kind of communicating all of these different departments, different aspects of culture outside to people who might need them or might appreciate them, that did not have they didn't have them accessible up until then. And I think communication was pretty much 100% of why that product succeeded.
So what are the key takeaways? I think I picked up on few, and I think one is really, you actually need to spend time with these people and you actually need to get to know them. And I think that's what I have found out for me to help me a lot. I want to get to know my stakeholders. I want to, become friends, or just, be able to have a coffee and also get to know them as people. And then build a relationship with them and also show them actively, right? I think maybe that's the other takeaway. It's like, show them actively that they can rely on you. So examples of that I have, like, did you let them know about something simple of your product? So for example, maybe the release, or they were supposed to be able to test today and they thought they will be able to access and get their hands on something today. But that didn't happen, and maybe you did not have like a super formal agreement about it that you have to maybe let them know, but it's like giving them heads up and being like, hey, a few days ahead, we've been facing these and those issues, we are working on it, we might not be, like being very proactive in the communication and building trust by actually acting upon every single thing and reassuring them that no matter what happens, good or bad, we are here, we're taking care of it, I'm taking care of it, you can rely on me, right? And for me, that's also very much related to building the personal also relationship with doesn't matter who it is, on which side of the company, because this way they won't be after really you and your team, but hopefully they will be working with you to help you solve the problem.
Yeah, this was definitely show don't tell, because we received zero grace. And I walked into a department that was very new and that had a very ambitious goal and target, and this was not communicated to the rest of the organization before we arrived. So it was a lot of just showing progress and showing that the different departments are being heard and that stakeholders are offering significant value, and that whatever it is that we are doing, it's with them and not against them. So definitely show don't tell. It's putting things in the schedule, making sure that there's a weekly catch up, a weekly update when they know what's going on, when they know if there's something that's being pushed back, or if there are any changes that they need to approve, or something that is exciting for them to see that week. Just making sure that they see that there's progress all the time, and also kind of sticking up for them. I think that was a lot of that. Just making sure that they see that I'm on their corner, and that I'm defending them in front of leadership and in front of other stakeholders, and that that they know that they're heard and they're protected.
I have another question, and I think that's because I know that all of us, we have different experiences, also backgrounds, and I just wonder, is there a difference between soft skills in small companies and in big companies for a product manager? So would one thing that you have done in a startup as communication, maybe, and maybe Niva, that's for you, but one thing that you do in terms of communication in a small company, would that be transferable and then applied to a big company as communication skills? And I'm asking that because I have found this when I've been applying for jobs in the past. When you have had too much experience in startup world, then sometimes becomes harder, of course, to get something in a corporate world, and vice versa. It's a little bit about like, yeah, but your setting, and there's many factors, right? It's not only communication, but I wonder, is there anything towards communication that actually is very different between the different sizes of organizations?
I think definitely, especially when the company grows or department grows, I think it can become more challenging especially because you have to deal with first of all, you have to deal with more people or maybe more teams, but then also other teams, right? And I think that's then it's maybe becomes even more important that you're super clear. But then also, I don't know, I can just think of an example of a startup that I worked at, and we were growing quite a bit. So just making sure that also it's clear what your team is working on, because then you can help each other out as well. And I think that's something that you have to like nurture this communication, but then also just making the rest of the organization know, okay, this is the initiative we're working on. And you know, I can think of an example where we worked on this like new product initiative, and it was pretty new, and we were trying to kind of reach build a product for a new target group. And what we were doing at the time was a lot of customer research, or just talking to a lot of potential customers. And it was very critical for us, for our team in particular, that the rest of the organization actually knew what we were doing, because that was also a way to kind of reach out to more people, but then also maybe get some insights from the sales team or from the customer support team that we otherwise wouldn't get. So I think it's in that sense it can become a little bit more sometimes more complex, but also maybe even more important, because it's not like you're gonna poke somebody on their shoulder and say it's not, that's not how it's gonna work in a bigger company. So in that sense, maybe it becomes even more important.
Most important soft skill in a corporate world is listening, because you're going to be in meetings all day.
Absolutely.
Most important skills in startup is problem solving, because you're going to solve actual problems. So you don't have to be in meetings all day. I'm kidding, right? But it is kind of true. Like in a startup, you need more in the execution, so you probably need to be better at listening, doing all that stuff, or solving problems. In large organizations, it's more about getting people to work together and align on the same goals. So it's hard to say which soft skills it is, because soft skills are so vague and hard to define, and they're part of everything, right? But you need different skill sets for sure.
I wanna include one more skill that I think is super necessary for small organizations that I found is impossible to translate to larger ones, which is flexibility. The ability to recognize the need for an immediate change, maybe in the way that Scrum is built, maybe in the size of sprints, maybe moving to Kanban and then back to sprints. That's something that is not only possible but necessary in a small company, in a startup environment, when you need to really, as you said, like be a problem solver, and the solution might be structural and not just an idea or a feature. Whereas enacting that kind of change in a big organization is close to impossible.
It is close to impossible, but like one client of mine, we literally changed operating model every 6 months. Like we were running SAFe, but then management didn't like SAFe anyways. Then we had too many meetings. Then we had too few meetings. Then we needed large teams. Then we needed small teams. I remember the team members came to me and they're like, "Why on earth are we changing everything every 6 months? We just want to develop, Can we just stick with one?" So in that company, they for sure needed to be flexible, because they didn't know exactly how they wanted to operate. It was ridiculous in the end. Yeah.
Was that a large or a small organization?
Super big. Plus 3,000 people, but of course the team I was in was like 200. Yeah, but still, yeah. So I don't know, but they also say you have to be one more flexible, and world is getting one more complicated and this stuff all the time, right? But
I think the difference, and one of the biggest difference for me between the corporate or like bigger companies and smaller companies is that I'm pretty sure that in a large organizations, you can keep finding more and more people, stakeholders, or anyone that has been involved one way or another with something that you've been doing. Like the amount of silos, I think there could be, and it's not for the wrong reasons. I think sometimes it's just that everyone had the right ideas and they want to explore probably the same thing, but because they're so big, then it just becomes challenging to align, and to have that communication flow between everyone, and so that we don't find about, hey, I have been working on something, whatever customer sign up form, that guess what, 3 other departments have been doing the same thing. And we kind of find out at a later stage, and then, oh, but let's align now. And then this whole thing kind of grows and becomes like a completely different project size. So the very important skill there will be is just really being the octopus, I think, in as a product manager, and being able to talk to everyone and align everyone, and this huge stakeholder management, which I also find in some of these companies then becomes that you as a product manager, you are spending a lot more time in meetings and communicating and aligning, and you might not have then enough time to probably do the product discovery, or maybe even spend time with the development team for certain aspect, just because you need to make sure that the messaging and your vision and strategy is the same, and everyone knows what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. I think I can also add that the ability to like nurture pretty much everybody on your team is also something that's super necessary and also possible within a small organization, where you actually get to sit down with almost all of the devs and kind of hear what they're excited and passionate about, and what they would like to continue to like advance their knowledge in and bring into the organization, and see how that kind of fits to the thing, to the features and improvements that you want to add next. I feel like that we can like do like a round robin and add more and more and more skills, the soft skills that we think that product managers should have, and like continue to have this like circle until the end of times. But that was just one more that I thought was super. I think it's super important for products within smaller organizations.
So question. I think Niva said it at some point, is that we all think we're good at communication, but we might not be. And I feel like we all know when communication is not in place, or we're not able to communicate with others. When it is in place, we don't even notice it because everything's just floating. We're happy, everything's going great. We don't even notice it, right? So as a product manager, how do I know where I'm at? How do I know if I have the soft skills that I need to do my job, and how do I learn them? Like, what's the way to solve that?
I think that's a really good observation. I think it's it's like you said, like it's when things are going well, it's everything is well, right? It's only until we run into a problem, it's like, oh man, I actually messed up this one, or I missed on that part, or I don't know. I think it requires a lot of self-awareness, right? And being very honest with yourself as well, where you are. And I think in general, like when you enter product management, but also as you kind of develop throughout your career, is like being honest with yourself where you are and where you need to improve. And I think that requires a lot of self-awareness and a lot of honesty as well. And I don't know, I'm kind of a person that also likes to reflect on those things, especially if you're in a situation where things didn't go so well. Maybe take some time to say, hey, where did I miss the point, or what is it actually that didn't go so well. So I think it's also, and that's kind of self-leadership in a way, right? It's also like to catch yourself when things go wrong, or when the team. Like something with the team goes wrong, and try to improve. And I think we do that sometimes in retrospectives or something like that, right? So I think it requires definitely some reflection as well. Yeah,
I think asking for feedback, right? I think if we are self-conscious about it and we do self-reflection, I think we should just be asking for feedback continuously, right? And then listen and try to make sense, listen to what people are saying or try to make sense of that. Especially if then you see a pattern, something, the same things are happening. And I think I've seen that where, let's say we have the same issue all over again. And I can always think about one very good issue is where I'm getting surprised by sales that we need to be able to do a specific thing already now, but we didn't know about it. And I've been asking myself, like, how is this happening every single time? I'm getting these surprises once a year with my current client, my previous client, once a year, twice a year. I get this one major surprise where I'm like, I did not know about this. Like, why did you want to go to the Norwegian market, for example? And then you have a conversation with them, and then you agree these things, they need to be communicated when in timely manner. Like, this needs to be communicated. Never happens. And then I kept doing that. And then I think instead what I should have done is that ask, okay, why is it for you that you are not coming to me to tell me, or what should we do, or give me feedback on this? Like, how do we improve this communication together? And how do we make it so I'm not getting these surprises, nor you are not disappointing your customers or our customers by saying that we are not able to deliver something. But this is of course more B2B case. But I feel like I don't think, and maybe what we should be doing is that we should be asking more for feedback. We should also be more assessing and also solution oriented with these kind of situations where if you see these patterns, we have to look into ourselves, but then also try to create the conversation for everyone on how to solve it.
It's very mature and definitely the right way to be like, I can do better, right? If you do something and it's not beneficial for me or others, I'm taking it on my shoulders. I should have done better. It's very mature. But it's too mature. No, I don't know. But I'm thinking, Elena, like, do you know, like it's like asking customers what they want and you get a bunch of bullshit back, right? So if you want to improve your skills, do you think it's actually a good idea to go out and talk to quote unquote regular people? Because how do they know whether or not, like, how do they give you the right inputs? You can maybe hear problems or see if there's gaps, but then how do you go out and figure out what the right solutions are to those, how you improve yourself?
It's a very good question.
Therapy, therapy, every first Thursday in Copenhagen at 5 o'clock. No, I don't know.
That's a solution. Yeah, I think it's a very good question. You can definitely test it out, or like try to have conversations, and I think focusing on understanding better what was the problem really, like what was the root cause, why this happened. I think this continuous analysis that I actually have been doing on this situation that I mentioned, it was just like, why is this, like, is it so difficult to remember to tell me? And then there could be many excuses or reasons for why things like that are happening. But I think the solution there you will know if it's the right solution if you start seeing this pattern or this situation changing next times. So I think there is no other way besides just a little bit like product development and in product management, is that I will develop a hypothesis about why is this happening. Then I'll try to provide a micro solution, something like very quick win, something easy I could do. I will implement it. I'll see how it goes, and then kind of build upon on that as I go, and then observe, is this really working? Has there been any improvement, or this was just yet another process or something we did that it was just not useful? But yeah, spot on. I think that's why it's so difficult to be a product manager.
Super hard. Don't do it. Become a developer.
Add to what you said, Elena. It's like, exactly, I think it's also like trying things out. I remember many times with the team, like just trying out different processes, like literally communication processes, like what does it work for us? Because maybe some processes do not work for a specific team, and that's fine as well. So I think it's also trying to figure out what actually works, learn from it, maybe improve it if need be. And then sometimes it is simply sometimes it's also just having like a checklist of some sort. Okay, this is, especially if it's like these kind of things, like making sure that something's being communicated. It's like, okay, before we release this feature, okay, have we checked all the boxes, right? Have we informed everybody? I don't know, you very, very much about the process sometimes as well. Although things can get lost in the process as well. And I think this is what we're talking about, right? It's like you can have this perfect process, but then still things sometimes go.
But I think it's a good idea, because when you say process, what you're reflecting on is actually, if I put myself in my audience's shoes, what are they expecting to get, and am I actually doing that? And that's how you build the checklist, because you're like, have I communicated this in time, because they have deadlines, or et cetera, right?
Exactly. Or like, let's say you're pushing a feature to a beta audience, right? Like, are the teams informed? Have I talked to CS to talk about this? How is going to go with the feedback that we receive from those customers or users? How is that going to be looped back to the team, right? So that could be one example. Or like, how do we respond in case this and this happens? These things can be planned in advance and should be planned in advance, I guess. But sometimes you also just learn as you go, I guess, and then you have to iterate.
Yeah, I'd like to suggest a litmus test for bad communication. If your last 4 roles have ended with a dispute that you couldn't mitigate, you're a bad communicator.
Why is it 4? Like, is there any?
If it's not like anecdotal, if you see a trend of leaving a job because of a large dispute that you weren't able to mitigate, that's probably, there's some problem with how you communicate. It's very generalistic, but I find that if there's no, if you can think about your last, I don't know, 3, 2, whatever positions that ended amicably, and that you were sad to leave because everybody was great and everything worked great, then there's probably some sort of communication problem. Also, if you hark back on just how terrible everybody is at communicating their issues and problems, then you're maybe not a good listener. Because people are people everywhere. I mean, if they're always, they're always telling you what they need. They don't necessarily tell you well. They don't necessarily explain exactly what they need, but they tell you what they need. And if you are having trouble hearing that and having trouble translating that into actions and having trouble communicating with them about those issues, then that might be something to invite some self-reflection. That's for the less mature people that have some trouble, self-reflecting ad hoc.
I feel we should have had here also invited someone that is a people manager. And in my brief time, on my time as people manager, I feel like what you just mentioned is just becoming like, even, I guess, more critical, because then you have the additional responsibility of developing these people, helping them out, coaching them, guiding them, right? And then in that scenarios, in that scenario, there is a lot of also, I think, miscommunication that, and misalignment that can be created, because people are different, people have different ways of expressing themselves, people like different things. And I think it's very challenging to hit the right spot with and have the right balance in terms of like how good are your soft skills for what scenarios and where. Very, very wide topic as well, I think.
If you keep complaining about issues with people and you keep seeing them, it's probably you that's the problem, right? That's what I'm saying as well. Like there's a trend there.
Yeah, it's a pretty good conclusion of today's podcast, I must say. I did not see that coming, but really nice. I think it's been very nice to hear all of those inputs. So to close up today's episode, do you have any takeaway, or what are you taking away with you today home?
Need to reflect on how or to really like see the small things, see people's reactions, and then figure out ways to improve yourself. Like if you keep seeing the same small things, there's an opportunity there to improve yourself when it comes to soft skills, often in communication.
I'm gonna take trust that Niva suggested as the main, like trust building as the main the soft skill to take away from this. I actually haven't been thinking about trust building in a while, and this kind of reminded me how important that is, and how not trivial it is in a lot of organizations. I've been very lucky in the past roles, my recent roles, to be in places that that immediately issued me with trust, and how how lucky I was to have that trust, and yeah, that I'm definitely taking that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me the big one is listening, and I think Sebastian touched upon this a little bit. How important it is actually to listen and to develop these listening skills. That it's like with all communication skills, I feel it's also like we all think we're good listeners, but what does it actually mean, and how, and is there ways we can improve it? I think because we oftentimes come from our own perspective, or a bit are maybe self-centered, and we don't really listen. We want to respond immediately, right? Instead of just, okay, now I'm just going to be quiet for a little bit and really try to understand where you're coming from before I share my part. And I think that's definitely something that is critical for all the product managers out there. Whether you work in a smaller company or a big one, it doesn't really matter. But definitely very, very critical skill.
Yeah, I think I will join you on this one. And I think it's what you said, 100% to give up being so self-centered, because we all are, and we also like, acting how do you say it now? I just lost this, but yeah, that to really not be so self-centered and try to listen more and let go of your ego, I guess, because a lot of these situations are being created because of the importance that we think we have as well, and the teams and the products and the defense and also the stance that we take to make the best product, to create the best team, have the best possible team formation, and also resources or capabilities, possibilities for the team. And then I think in that we will also then become, or we are getting a little bit more stubborn, and like it has to be our way, and then we might not be listening enough, right? And I think that's really a balance, or something that it's very hard to really nail down.
Yeah, and I think it's in any kind of situation, right? It can be in your team, but it can also be like when you're talking to a customer, right? Oftentimes we also come with our own agendas or even solutions. We jump to solutions or our products and so forth. But instead, maybe the focus should be just really on the customer and what they're dealing with, and their context, the situation, problems, and so forth, their needs, right?
Yeah. Good. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. I hope to see you soon again.